I am what I am. I am my own special creation. So come take a look. Give me the hook or the ovation. It's my world that I want to have a little pride in. My world, and it's not a place I have to hide in. Life's not worth a damn till you can say, I am what I am what I am. I don't want praise, I don't want pity. I bang my own drum. Some think it's noise, I think it's pretty. And so what if I love each sparkle and each bangle? Why not try to see things from a different angle? Your life is a sham till you can shout out, I am what I am. I am what I am, and what I am needs no excuses. I deal my own deck, sometimes the ace, sometimes the deuces. It's one life and there's no return and no deposit. One life, so it's time to open up your closet. Life's not worth a damn till you can shout out, I am what I am. I am what I am what I am, and what I am needs no excuses. I deal my own deck, sometimes the ace, sometimes the deuces. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 6th annual PRISM Pride Day. I am Deb Leitner. I am the Chief Compliance Officer for the Emblem Health family of companies and the very proud executive sponsor of PRISM. You know, when Greg Ryder and I founded PRISM in 2016, we envisioned an ERG where members of the LGBTQ community and its allies could bring their authentic selves to a place to network, to share experiences, to collaborate, and to support the communities that the Emblem Health family of companies serves. And since that time, we've brought our members together to events like this to share our experiences. We've invited internal speakers here to educate us and inspire us, like we're going to hear today. Partnered with community and provider organizations to assess how we can support the Emblem Health LGBTQ plus community, and even volunteered at events in our communities throughout our service area. So today, we're going to take a moment to reflect not only how far PRISM has come as an ERG, but also how far the LGBTQ community has come in law, in society, so that our authentic selves, the one we bring to work every day, and bring and share in our lives every day, are accepted and recognized nationwide. We have a spectacular lineup today. I mean, we always outdo ourselves here at PRISM year over year. But first things first, we're going to show a video that is a bit of a montage of the journey that our LGBTQ brothers and sisters have taken over the last 60, 70, 80 years to get to where we are today. So if we can roll that video, I'll be back in a minute.
What would you do if no one cared for you? Imagine, if you're honest about who you are, you could be killed. That's always been the reality for many LGBT folks since the birth of America. Many people lived in secret, fearful that someone would discover their truth. That was a motivation for Walt Whitman to write poetry that would beckon gay people to safe places where they could build community. Yet most LGBT people were still forced to live in isolation. Then Carl Maria Kurtbeny gave us the term homosexual and the power to identify. And writers like Alice Dunbar Nelson showed up. As a biracial, bisexual woman, her courage in the face of prejudice allowed more stories of LGBT people to be told. Like that of the Two-Spirit Zuni Native American Wewa, who impressed President Grover Cleveland, but after her truth was fully known, she was villainized. Over time, LGBT people congregated in safe spaces, and we began to see more representation in art, books, and theater. America soon called women to fight, and a contingent of lesbians formed in the Women's Army Corps, which became a place where lesbian women could be themselves. After the war, many women refused to go back to traditional gender norms. All of this paved the way for the homophile era. For the first time, we saw people publicly demanding livable communities and LGBT equality. Later, scientific studies proved that homosexuality was not a psychiatric disorder that needed to be cured, and put an end to the practice of placing LGBT people in mental asylums. While there was a growing restlessness among gender nonconformists, one by one, LGBT folks rose up to defend themselves, rioting in places like donut shops, cafeterias, and bars. Their courage sprung from Magnus Hirschfeld's safe haven for LGBT folks, which inspired Henry Gerber to form the Society for Human Rights. This motivated countless LGBT people to create change and establish more LGBT organizations across America. By the time of Stonewall, it became impossible to ignore the gay liberation movement. Human rights leaders like Harvey Milk unapologetically called for each of us to live fearlessly in the open. His murder and legacy inspired a new generation of civic activists fighting for the civil liberties of the LGBT people. In solidarity, LGBT people of all ages, races, and genders, and their allies, demanded equality for their community at the first National Gay Rights March. Then, AIDS. Commonly called gay cancer, LGBT people with AIDS were denied health care. Many politicians were apathetic. Those afflicted had to harness the will to survive against all odds, while many in America refused to acknowledge this epidemic. People got angry, sparking a movement that encouraged the community to act up. When news revealed that AIDS affected even those who were not homosexuals, policies finally began to shift. By then, an entire generation had already disappeared, erasing many voices that carried our history. Homophobia and transphobia led to the violent loss of more lives, as gay activists lobbied for protections already offered to other people. Then legislation criminalized discrimination against LGBT folks. The military embraced gay Americans and did away with Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Gay couples gained the right to legally marry anywhere in the United States. And now LGBT elders like Marsha Wetzel are fighting and winning legal battles for housing rights, underlining that everyone deserves freedom from harassment and discrimination, especially as we age. Today, National Historic Landmarks recognize significant LGBT events as part of America's history. When faced with death and injustice, LGBT people were forced to hide in the closet until the time was right to emerge as visible and vocal activists for equality. Even today, in the face of rising hate crimes, underrepresentation, and denial, LGBT people still struggle for acceptance and equality. 3 out of 4 LGBT older adults still worry about having enough support from family and friends as they age. This fight continues, and it's a fight where we all have a stake in. In the guiding words of AARP founder Dr. Ethel Percy Andrus, what we do for all. Our movement that started as a fight for survival has become a story of resilience. This is progress paved by heroes in the past, present, and into the future. Now more than ever, it's time for all of us to stand up, speak out, and claim care for ourselves, for our LGBT community, and for our future. A living history of the LGBT movement, powered by AARP. Learn more at aarp.org/pride.
That was so powerful. And as Greg is going to explain to us what's coming down the pike here in the next 52 minutes, I'm going to kick it over to him. But before I do, I have got to take this opportunity to congratulate our very own Greg Ryder for his recognition as a 2022 Crain's New York Notable LGBTQ Leader. Yay! We are so fortunate to have such a dedicated and energetic and innovative leader for PRISM in Greg. And we are so proud of this recognition of his contributions to the EmblemHealth family of companies DEI strategy and activities. He's on our DEI council. To PRISM since its inception, he's my idea partner. The third day I started work, had my first meet and greet with Greg Ryder, who happens to be on my team. So I am slightly in favor of him. But third day, we said, let's start an LGBT ERG. We don't have one yet. So just thrilled to have him as our leader since the inception and the contributions he continues to make to the LGBTQ community at EmblemHealth and in New York City. He's a proud member of the New York City Gay Men's Chorus. So I could gush on and on and on, but congratulations, Greg. You rock. Take it away.
Thank you, Deb. Thrilled to have to be part of that list. Also, shout out to our Chief Strategy Officer at Advantage Care Physicians, Tim Kelly, who's also on that list, and also one of the members of our PRISM Healthcare Coalition, Matt Kudish, who's the Executive Director of the National Alliance of Mental Illness of New York City. He's on that. So thrilled to be here. Just to give you a preview of who we've got sharing with us today, we're going to kick off with some powerful stories from our PRISM members. We have 2 impressive guest speakers with us today, Heather Betz and then Judith Kasen-Windsor, and they will be introduced by who I say the world's most networked person, Greg Johnson. So just a few moments before I turn it over to Carly and Carla. First of all, my name is Greg Ryder. My pronouns are he and his, and I'm gay. And in case you didn't hear that the 4 times I said it, I'm gay. I'm saying that because I'm proud, and I'm saying that for all the people in states around this country who cannot say they're gay for fear of harassment, their safety, being imprisoned, being denied health care, being denied jobs. So I stand up and say that I'm gay, and I also share my pronouns to make it easier for those who may not have what we consider traditional pronoun usage. So I want to just briefly highlight some things that we're here to celebrate. Today's theme is celebration and vigilance. So I want to thank first of all, our companies for embracing our LGBT employees, members, patients, and communities. And when Deb had just talked about she and I starting PRISM, at that time there was only one other ERG. It was the women's group, which is called Empowerment. They're now called the Bold Collective. We now have I think 6 ERGs. So congrats to that. I want to celebrate my husband, Ed. As of May 3, we are legally husband and husband. This has been the year of gay Greg weddings. So congrats to Greg Johnson, who also married this year. I also want to celebrate someone I just found out about today. Her name is Celia Warwick. Her obituary was in today's New York Times. Back in 1975, when she was the Boulder County clerk in Colorado, she issued a marriage license to a gay couple, one of the first to do so in the nation. Since April 11th of this year, U.S. citizens have been able to select a non-binary gender marker X when applying for a passport. I want to celebrate Pete Buttigieg, who is our openly gay U.S. Secretary of Transportation. Karine Jean-Pierre, who's a French-American who has served as the White House press secretary since May of this year. She is the first Black person and the first openly LGBTQIA+ person to be White House press secretary. Celebrate Ariana DeBose, who received the 2022 Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for playing Anita in West Side Story. She is the first Afro-Latina, the first openly queer actor of color, and the first openly queer woman to win an Oscar, as well as the first openly queer woman of color to receive an acting nomination. I must confess and brag that when she was the host of the Tony Award this year, I was in the audience, the first mezzanine, all decked out. So thanks to the chorus for my free ticket to that. And then also celebrate Rachel Levine, who is the Assistant Secretary of Health. She's a pediatrician and the first openly transgender federal official to be confirmed by the US Senate. So with that, I will turn over to some more powerful stories. First up is Carly Borenkind. She's a Medicare Compliance Officer, Director of Medicare Compliance, and a PRISM leadership team member and co-chair of our PRISM LGBTQ Healthcare Coalition. She will be followed by Carla Duffy, who is a Quality and Training Analyst Clinical. She's a PRISM member and fearless, fierce, impassioned ally. So take it away, Carly.
Thank you so much, Greg. And you will soon learn that I share an anniversary date with Greg Ryder. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about how marriage equality affected my wife and I. So my wife and I started dating in July of 2005, and in the early fall of 2007, we got engaged on the beach in Calixa, Mexico. When we got home, we started planning for our wedding, which, we knew would have to be in Canada, since in May of 2008, it was not legal to get married in New York State. And federally, a marriage between two women was not recognized. Our wedding was to be 23 stories above the Canadian Niagara Falls on May 3rd, 2008. Due to the 8-hour drive, sadly, some of our friends and family couldn't join us, but 10 of us did trek up to Canada, and it was a wonderful 4-day celebration. But so many of our good friends and colleagues couldn't be with us due to that long drive and time away from work. So we got home and, time ticked on as it does. As we prepared our taxes in early 2009, it felt a little defeating that we needed to file as single, but such was life, and we went ahead and filed as single. Life continued to be busy and happy, and since our marriage was not recognized, we had also become domestic partners for things like health insurance and hospital visiting rights. In early 2009, I underwent a 9-hour spinal fusion, and we knew that I would be in the ICU for a day or two, so we didn't want there to be any issues with Michelle not being permitted into the ICU since our marriage license wasn't recognized in the US. So that domestic partner registry did come in handy, but overall, the hospital was very good about respecting Michelle as my wife. In April of 2009, I was a speaker in a locally televised LGBTQ healthcare panel. In the morning of that panel, Governor Patterson signed a bill to legalize gay marriage in New York State. It did not take very long for the crew of the Channel 12 News to learn that my wife and I were the only legally married couple in that room of over 200 people. So after the panel ended, the news crew interviewed Michelle and I and what it meant to us that Governor Patterson would now recognize our marriage in New York State. So we soon became local celebrities because, as those of you familiar with the local news will know, the same clip are shown over and over and over again for days at a time. But even after they were done showing that full clip, every time they needed a sound bite or an image of an LGBTQ couple, there was Michelle and I plastered all over the Channel 12 News. So luckily, we were very open. But if we are not, we surely would have been after that. So as we prepared our taxes in early 2010, we got to file jointly for state, but still had to file a single for federal. But we would take what we could get. We were overjoyed in 2015 when LGBTQ marriages were made legal in America. I knew personally many of the people who worked tirelessly to make marriage equality a reality, and I will forever be grateful to them. Last month, Michelle and I celebrated our 14th wedding anniversary. It's amazing how the years fly by and all that's changed with marriage equality in those 14 years. I'm so glad that couples getting married today, like Greg and Greg, don't need to cross borders to have a legal marriage. And with that, I'll turn it over to Carla.
Thank you, Carly. So again, my name is Carla Duffy. I am a registered nurse. I'm a quality and training analyst. My family and I currently reside in the state of Florida. I am a straight female. I use she, her pronouns. I do have 2 children that are in the LGBTQ community. They have given me permission to share their stories. I have a 15-year-old daughter named Michaela. She is lesbian. And I have an 11-year-old son who is trans. He was assigned female at birth and identifies as non-binary and uses he, they pronouns. And make no mistake about it, I am their biggest ally. We are originally from upstate New York. Last year, when we started talking about moving to Florida, my son expressed some concern. Florida is a more conservative state than New York, and so he had made the decision that he wasn't going to come out. And for our family, that wasn't an option. He had to live authentically, and we knew, and he knew, that we would fully support him. Part of the reason he was so concerned about coming out is because in July of 2022, next month, here in the state of Florida, the parental rights in education law, which has also been called the Don't Say Gay law, will take effect. This law places strict guidelines on instruction or discussion about anything related to LGBTQ in all grades in all public schools in the state of Florida. And it strictly bans all discussion about the topic in grades kindergarten through 3rd grade. The law has also resulted in some teachers removing signs from their classroom that say this is a safe space. And some teachers have also removed photos of their same gendered partners and their families for fear of lawsuits, because it's not really clear to them what is allowed and what is not. We know that our LGBTQ youth are already at higher risk for mental health concerns. And it's important to point out that being LGBTQ does not inherently raise a person's suicide risk. The mistreatment and the stigmatization of the people in that community is what elevates the suicide risk. And so laws that reduce our youth's ability to be their authentic self contributes to that increased suicide risk. The Trevor Project reports from a 2022 survey, 2022, that's this year, about the mental health of our LGBTQ youth. And the survey found 14% of LGBTQ youth attempted suicide in the past year. That's a pretty big number. 45% of LGBTQ youth seriously considered attempting suicide in the past year. 1 in 5 transgender and non-binary youth attempted suicide in the past year. 75% of LGBTQ youth reported that they had experienced discrimination based on their sexual orientation or gender at least once in their lifetime. 93% of transgender and non-binary youth said that they have worried about transgender people being denied access to gender-affirming medical care. 91% of transgender and non-binary youth have said that they worried about transgender people being denied access, are you ready for this? To the bathroom. 83% of transgender and non-binary youth have said that they worry about transgender people being denied the ability to play sports. The National Alliance on Mental Health reports that 86% of our LGBTQ youth reported being harassed or assaulted at school, 86%. Lesbian, gay, and bisexual youth are 2 times more likely to experience a mental health condition compared to heterosexual youth. And transgender youth are 2 times more likely to experience depressive symptoms, consider suicide, and attempt suicide compared to cisgender, lesbian, gay, bisexual, queer, and questioning youth. However, LGBTQ youth who found their school environment to be LGBTQ affirming reported lower rates of attempting suicide. And studies report that LGBTQ youth are far less likely to attempt suicide when their pronouns are respected. On a little bit of a personal note, last year, EmblemHealth celebrated a new initiative that would allow staff to identify their chosen pronouns in their standard company signature. And as many of you may remember, Karen Ignogny had sent out an email to the enterprise. I responded to that email and to Karen because I wanted to personally thank her. She replied to me, and I would like to read a part of what her email response said. She said, "As we focus on culture, we are committed to ensuring that all of our team members feel that our environment supports them, welcomes them, and allows them to thrive." So thank you, Karen. So what are we doing? What can you do to help protect our LGBTQ youth? Well, the first thing is you can keep coming to events like this that will increase your knowledge and your awareness of the issues surrounding all of our friends and family in the LGBTQ community. And you can share that information with others. Join PRISM, get involved with the activities that we plan. Learn about your local and state laws that relate to our LGBTQ population. Work to elect lawmakers whose ideals and goals align with yours. Find reputable organizations, whether on the national or local level, and get involved. Some organizations that you might want to learn a little bit more about. One is PFLAG. PFLAG is the first and largest organization for LGBTQ people, their parents, families, and allies. The organization is rooted in activism and advocacy. And the members and supporters build on that legacy, working to achieve equality by changing hearts, minds, and laws at all levels of government to effect critical and long overdue change. The National Center for Transgender Equality advocates to change policies and societal perceptions to increase understanding and acceptance of transgender people, and to replace disrespect, discrimination, and violence with empathy, opportunity, and justice. And the Trevor Project that I saw somebody mention, the goal of the Trevor Project is to end suicide among lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning young people. They offer telephonic, chat, and text support. And the best thing is, anyone can volunteer that is 18 years of age or older. You don't have to have any special training. All you need to do is have an open heart and an open mind. So thank you all for joining us today. And I think I'm turning it back over to one of the two Gregs.
Thank you so much, Carla.
Thank you.
Was so powerful, and Carly as well. We at Emblem Health are indeed blessed to have such leadership at the very top, and it just flows outward. I'm Greg Johnson. I am the Chief Advisor to the CEO of Emblem Health for family caregiving. And I assure you that from the very beginning, 22 years ago, we talked of families of origin and families of choice, and that remains as truth. Our topic this year, celebration and vigilance. And in our two speakers, whom I'm going to have the privilege of introducing to all of you, I think we capture both of those. NILAG, the New York Legal Assistance Group, has a long relationship with Emblem Health. When we founded the New York City Family Caregiver Coalition, Valerie Bogart, who was one of the directors there, has been an active member. So when we began looking to have someone from the legal world speak to us, she was the person to whom I turned. And so, Heather, please do thank Valerie. I wanted to give her a shout out for her graciousness. Heather Betz is our guest today. She is the director, and I'm going to read some of this because I want to get it correct. It's so powerful. Heather Betz is the director of the New York Legal Assistance Group's LGBTQ Law Project, where she leads the project's work on behalf of low-income lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer clients. Heather supervises attorneys, legal fellows, and paralegals working on a range of civil law matters, including family law, housing and employment discrimination, immigration, school advocacy, public benefits, life planning, and name changing. She also manages monthly legal clinics, directs the project's systematic advocacy work, and public education efforts. Her career goes on, but we are most anxious to hear from you, Heather, so the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Greg. And thank you everyone for including me today. It's in the few minutes we've been together, it's been very moving, and I'm very grateful to be part of this celebration and this moment of pause to reflect and look forward with you all during Pride Month. As Greg was saying, I am the director of the LGBTQ Law Project. My pronouns are she and her. We provide direct legal services to individuals. So we represent clients facing discrimination, facing deportation, facing housing and employment discrimination specifically. We help people change their names, update their gender markers, and just take the steps forward to live a dignified life. We do advocacy work as well as direct services. So we were recently involved with the passage of the Gender Recognition Act in the state of New York, which allows for an ex-gender marker on a New York State ID. We've worked to reform local laws in New York City and New York State on birth certificates, IDs as well, allowing people to self-attest their gender identity, and just whatever we can do to make life better for LGBTQ New Yorkers. But today I'm here to talk about some historical legal accomplishments in New York. We've sometimes been ahead of the curve and sometimes we have been behind. But in recent years, the federal government has caught up a little bit, which is great for everyone. As I believe today we have people from all around the country with us. And I'm grateful to see that we have made really large improvements nationally. So I wanted to touch on a few issues today. I want to make sure that we leave time for Judith, so I'm going to power through some things quickly. But I just want to highlight, where we've come from and, where we're headed when it comes to our legal rights. It's important to understand where, some of our discrimination emerged, much from the English settlers in 1714, who introduced sodomy laws in the United States, which would criminalize sexual relationships between same-sex couples. Unfortunately, the sodomy laws that used to exist in the US still exist in many Caribbean and African nations and have caused continued discrimination and persecution of people abroad. But fortunately, over the years, many people have worked very, very hard, and very brave people have stood up against sodomy laws in the United States. They first emerged in 1714, and interestingly, in 1779, Thomas Jefferson proposed that the punishment for sodomy should be reduced to mutilation instead of death, which is horrifying to think. And in fact, that was rejected by the Virginia legislature at the time. So this is where, our ancestors come from and what they dealt with in the 1700s. So when you think back to those days, we have certainly made much progress, but there is much more to do. Currently, we're seeing a lot of controversy around the Supreme Court, and I think it is important to reflect on the changes that we've experienced over the years and how the Supreme Court has overturned precedents, but in doing so has expanded our rights and freedoms, not taken them away. And just to highlight that in 1986, in the Bowers v. Hardwick case, the Supreme Court upheld Georgia's sodomy laws, and they stayed on the books for years after, criminalizing queer people just in their pure existence. And it wasn't until 2003 when Lawrence v. Texas was overturned Bowers. And that was how many years later? 17 years later. And Lawrence v. Texas, it provided great protections because during that time, people were discriminated against in public jobs just for the fact that these laws existed on the books. So that was a huge accomplishment. And I hope that we can look internationally and hope that the spread of sodomy laws around the world can be pulled back. At NILAG, we represent lots of people who have fled persecution from abroad, and we see the impact of those laws every day. Recent huge victories in employment rights. I'm sure everyone is familiar with the Bostock case that came down in 2020. Prior to that case, there was the Macy v. Holder case before the EEOC, where a very brave trans woman was found to have experienced employment discrimination, and that employment discrimination was consistent in the definition of sex discrimination within Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. Such important case going forward and preserving our employment rights. In New York, we've had some great rights. We've had agenda, we have rights in the city, and it's just been amazing to see that around the country, people are now protected in employment law. And if you know people in New York City who need representation in cases involving employment discrimination, we're here for you. Because as we applaud these national changes, we also acknowledge that that does not mean that people do not lose their jobs because of employment discrimination. So if there are people that you know in the community, feel free to refer them to us for assistance. And I know today, we're very fortunate. I'm very much looking forward to hearing from from Judith. So I just want to highlight just a couple of issues around the expansion of rights under marriage laws. In 1993, the Hawaii Supreme Court found that the ban on same-sex marriage was likely to be unconstitutional. But instead of moving forward with same-sex marriage in Hawaii, the legislature stepped in, and then they tried to create, the domestic partnership that happened there, as well as banning marriage. And it was a very challenging time. That was when I was in college. And that was what inspired me to go into law school. The other piece that inspired me as well was the Defense of Marriage Act, which came in 1996, which, as we all know, defined marriage as between a man and a woman. At that time, I was with my, I was first dating my wife at that time. We've been together since then. We've been legally married for much less years, but we've been together for many, many years. And my wife was from Scotland. She is a British citizen, and DOMA sent a very clear message to us that not only would we not be ever get married in Hawaii, our marriage would never be recognized under the federal government, and therefore I would not have the opportunity to sponsor her for immigration purposes as my straight counterparts would be. So that was a really dramatic and disturbing event in the law, and definitely inspired many people who I know to go to law school and to see what can be done to overturn these laws. It was a magical day in 2003 when the Massachusetts court stepped up, and we had the right to marry in Massachusetts. And soon the other states followed. But as I mentioned, all the laws that derive from marriage were still not available to many, many, many people, including, in my case, the right to sponsor one's partner for immigration purposes. And that is just one example of the hundreds and hundreds of laws that impact people's lives, big and small. And I'm just gonna fast forward. I will let Judith speak about the Windsor case. And just to highlight, as we all know, in 2015, when Obergefell came, the decision came, it was certainly a magical moment for so many. I know that there's so many issues, social issues and legal issues and medical issues, and that our community faces, but marriage is an institution that we have that has so many laws built into it, and being left out of those laws has had a huge impact on many people's lives. And it is certainly a magical time now that that is available. So we are grateful for all of the people who worked on these cases and all the great people who stood up and demanded to have their voices heard, and fought for their rights. As looking forward to the Supreme Court now taking a second look at Roe v. Wade, it's very anxiety provoking for all of us, because as we know, many of these cases were built on these notions of privacy and substantive due process under the 14th Amendment. And it's very, very terrifying to think what could happen next, and whether or not our fundamental rights to be ourselves and to be with who we choose are in jeopardy. So I hope that people stay vigilant and make their voices heard. And across the country, where trans kids particularly are under assault, in Texas and Florida and everywhere, we must step up and we must fight. We must have our voices heard, and protect the youth among us, especially because it comes down to people willing to take action and move forward and be heard, and to demand to be seen, for changes to be made. So thank you. I'll stop there so we have enough time for everyone, but thank you so much for having me here today. And again, I'm from the Legal Assistance Group, and if you know anyone who could use our services, feel free to send them our way. You can find us on the internet.
Wonderful. Thank you, Heather, so much. And we are indeed fortunate to have NILAG here in New York. And we'll put all of that contact information into our PRISM chat. We have people who are very capable on that. And now it's my great privilege to introduce a very special lady to all of you. Judith Kasen-Windsor is the surviving spouse of a very dear friend of mine, Edie. And those of you who are watching on Facebook this week, you've seen a lot of pictures of that wonderful lady in her red scarf, and I'm wearing the pin that we shared. She and I often would talk about it. She was a very, very special friend, and so I am overwhelmed with delight that, Judith, you could be with us today to be part of this celebration. And I want to also thank you and congratulate you. I know that there's just been an opening at the New York Historical Society. You are doing so much as a financial advisor, an activist, a speaker, a philanthropist of many, many causes. But beyond all of that, you are heralding the incredible legacy that was Edie Windsor's. And I know that you'll speak of it, but I think it's so marvelous that we here in New York will have the New York Historical Society, New York University, and then you were telling me also some of the materials will be at the Obama Library. So the floor is yours, darling. Thank you.
I was hoping this would be a little more interactive. But I can, speak, listening to the speakers, and what I find so important, in doing the work that I've done, and then with being with Edie and doing the work that we did is, when we speak to groups like this, it's kind of like speaking to the choir. And where I think it is so important is, the allies and the greater public. When I speak to, at SAGE, we all nod, we all get it, we all understand, but you have to reach out to the allies and your neighbors and your friends and your social networks and whatever, because, have them get into the fight of the Don't Say Gay, and have them get into the fight of transgender, and have them get into, and understand, what the whole bathroom thing is about, and understand these kinds of things. And I think that is just so important. We understand it, but we have to get the greater community to understand it. And that's why, I have worked extremely hard to get Edie, I've been pleased on so many different levels to have Edie in the main hall of the New York Historical Society and Museum, which is like a very kind of hoity-toity, prestigious kind of museum, to have her Supreme Court suit and the pink scarf and the amicus briefs, which I don't know if a lot of people know this, that amicus brief was signed by the most people of any Supreme Court case ever. So to have that in the main hall of the New York Historical Society, that's my goal, is to, reach out to those people who, kind of understand, but maybe don't know any gay people. But it's so important to have, that out to the general public. And that's my goal. And that is my goal, to get it to NYU and to the Obama Foundation Library. I have a feeling that when the Obama Foundation Library opens in 2025, that installation will probably be there for at least a year, which is extremely important. It's very important. And, I've spent a lot of time, and, the other thing that, I think about with Edie is, I don't always like to pigeonhole her into just being LGBTQ. Edie was many things. She was a technology pioneer. She was, a woman. She was Jewish. She was obviously an LGBTQ activist, but that's part of what she tried to portray to the world was, I'm more than just a gay woman. I'm more than that. I have more than that, and I have more to offer this community. And that's why she felt that way. I feel that way. And to get to, express that to the world and show how normal we really are, and take care of all that. That's my goal, is to have all of that be part of this community.
Well, Judith, I think you are doing an incredible job of that, because may I just ask, when did you first meet Edie?
Well, if you read the book, and which I like, I spent about 9 or 10 months after Edie passed away rewriting that book, so I know it quite well. I met Edie. I actually met Thea and Edie at a Callan Lord event in late 2008. So I did, and I was more introduced to Thea than I was introduced to Edie. I'm not sure where she was in that scenario, but I definitely remember Thea because she had this like Rolls Royce of a wheelchair. And so I met them briefly, and then Thea passed away in February 5th, 2009. And then following that, in 2010, Edie received the Lifetime Achievement Award at Sage. And I was at that dinner at a Wells Fargo table. And I don't know, but I looked up on that stage and saw her, and it's like, and I don't do this kind of thing and whatever, but it was like a movie kind of moment where I was like, oh my God, like her, like it's her. And so I kind of, we were always at the same events. We went to, Callan Lord events and HMI events and the Hampton Stand. I mean, we were all over the place, and pretty much anywhere I went, we would bump into each other. And the one thing that she did say about me is that, she was always there. And this is another similar thing that we had is like, a lot of women don't want to go to some of these events like Emory Awards from HMI and whatever, because they say it's mostly men. And one thing she said about me was that like, she used to see me at these events and she was like, you were always one of those visible women, always at all of these events. I think it is so important. And the only way we're going to get more women to go is if they go. And get involved in this community and be more involved. So I met Edie in 2010, and then she kind of went into stratosphere because the case really started right after that Sage thing. That's when I saw her on New York One, and I'm like, oh my God, that's her. And so I, especially being in New York, we followed that case very, very closely. It wasn't really until she got to the Supreme Court that the nation and the world saw that case, but that case started with a press conference at the center in November of 2010. And she had to go through state Supreme Court and, some other things. And then finally got her day in court in the end of March, 2013. And, to get a Supreme Court case, and I think your other guests can speak to this, is, that is a very difficult thing to do. I always say it's like not even a needle in a haystack. It's a needle in 2 haystacks. So for Edie to get to the Supreme Court in 2013 was really quite amazing. Like somebody was looking after her. I think maybe Thea was looking after her because, how you get to the Supreme Court is really not an easy task. So, she did that. And people do compare it a lot to Roe versus Wade. I'm very adamant about it. Edie and I talked about it at length because, about Roe versus Wade and marriage equality. To me, they're kind of 2 different. I mean, I think it's disgusting if they do overturn Roe, but I do believe this, that, Roe is one thing, that has to do with women. And I think it is a war on women, quite frankly, because, in all of this stuff versus Roe in the past 47 years, you never hear about, there's not a bounty on the head of the man who raped her or got her pregnant or the boyfriend or whatever. It's all on the woman's side. So where's the equality there? I don't see that equality there. The difference between Roe and the Windsor case is, in the Windsor case, Edie took down 7,800 laws and 1,128 tax laws. Wow. So if they overturn Windsor, they are going to clog the court system with, as it is now, people who have been together for 30 or 40 years are getting restitution and getting some monetary value back, and, not having the difficulty of like giving their house away to, somebody else's family and all this other stuff. They're getting restitution now. So, but to unravel 7,800 laws and 1,100 tax laws, that's going to be a very difficult thing to do. So Edie and I really dug our heels in about the Windsor case, that it's going to stand, because I don't know how the court system in every single state, and I don't care if it's Mississippi or Texas or Florida, it will clog the court system, because you can't take those monetary and those, all those rights away. So like in such a minor, in such a case like that, and just by knocking that down. That's a big thing for me.
Judith, you are simply amazing, and we are so blessed to have had this moment here with you. I can't begin to thank you enough, and I thank you from where you began, because I'm looking at Deb and I'm looking at Greg Ryder, who started all of this. Allies have been an equally strong part of this ERG, and they have played a very central role, as we just heard with Carla in telling her story about her family. It blows my mind away because I'm closer in age to Edie. But it blows my mind away to be involved in a corporate setting where this sort of a conversation is not only had, but it is honored and it's explored, and it's something that we look at from all points of view. So you and have blessed us so much today. I just think Edie's case was a divine appointment, but I'm a little prejudiced when it comes to that subject. And you, my darling, are so wonderful to have been with us once, and I can't begin to thank you enough. It's been wonderful, and now I believe I'm turning it back to Greg Ryder.
Thank you, Greg Johnson. I'm just sitting here sort of stunned by all that I've heard. I mean, Judith, thank you for your generosity, for just sharing your wisdom, the story. It was just, I mean, as Deb and I say, how are we going to top ourselves? But we do, because the information that we've shared, and Carla and Carly, thank you for just being so open, transparent, and passionate and sharing your story. And it's been an amazing 53 minutes that we've had.
And also, we want to thank Heather for her part for us as well.
Thank you. You need two Gregs to get everything covered. You need two Gregs and a Deb.
We'll
That's right.
always
Two
be
Gregs and a
bosom
Deb.
buddies.
Well, since we have a few minutes left, I'd like to also, as the executive sponsor and on behalf of Karen Ignani, who was able to join us for most of the program, and already emailed me, simply amazed by everyone's stories, all of the really critical information and history that Heather was able to give us. And then of course, Judith, your discussion, your story about how you met Edie, and your story about the case. I'm a lawyer by trade, so really resonated with me. All of the needle in two haystacks, totally get it. But this is, I just got a note from Tim Kelly, who's also a member of PRISM and also one of the LGBTQ Cranes Notable Leaders of 2022, that, our favorite part of the day, as you said, Greg, is coming together with our PRISM colleagues and having these kinds of discussions and having powerful allies behind all of our gay, lesbian, transgender, non-binary colleagues. I've seen at least a dozen requests to join our Teams channel come through during this event. We've got chat requests to have to join our general membership meeting, which Greg Ryder, why don't you promote the date for our general membership meeting?
Yes, our general membership meeting is July 7th at 4 p.m.
So if anyone, we'll put that in the Teams channel, and I'm sure Carly can figure out how to get invites to people through that. She's my Teams guru here for PRISM. But again, thank you all for your openness, your transparency, your sharing, your knowledge, your experiences, but most of all, your energy and passion. Because if there's one thing that PRISM is, it's passionate. Starting with me and straight through the rest of the organization. So I just wanted to thank everyone, since we did have a few minutes, and say what an absolute, this was my favorite hour of the day. That's what I always say when we meet. Favorite hour of the day for sure. So thank you.
So I'll just finish up. So continue with the thank you. Certainly thank you to Deb and our PRISM leadership team, to Bill Voigt and Melanie Moore, who's our new AVP of DEI and Strategic Communications. Of course, our DEI Council, Karen, thank you for your support, and certainly our events team that helped us today. Rafi Baran, Valerie Brown, Courtney J, and Melissa Adkins. You will receive a very brief survey about today's event as soon as the event ends. So if you can take a few moments to send us your feedback, that will help us plan future events and get-togethers and information resources. Thank you all for attending today, and for those who are watching this after the fact. For any information or ideas that you may have about PRISM, you can simply send an email to prism@emblemhealth.org. That's prism@emblemhealth.org. No matter which of our companies you reside in, you can send that to us. I want to just also call out with Judith sharing, she highlighted some of the key New York sort of institutions that have helped in all parts of our the parts of the community. She mentioned Callan Lord, which I put a post in, as sort of one of the first sort of community-based health centers focused on LGBTQ patients. She mentioned PFLAG, which actually had its start at the Church of the Village, which is in West Village, Chelsea, and they have a sign on their, how churches have signs outside to the home of PFLAG. And then, I think that was in the center. She mentioned, that Edie's talk at the Center for Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender is sort of the heart of Chelsea and West Village. So it's just, what more can I say? It's been a fabulous afternoon. Thank you all for joining us. Thanks for the energetic, really insightful, encouraging chats and people sharing their thoughts. And all the great hearts and claps and smiley faces and frowning faces.
Yeah.
It's wonderful to have that kind of interaction. And we'll close out with that same montage that we had at the beginning, and some fun music to close out your Wednesday.
I am what I am. I am my own special creation. So come take a look, give me the hook or the ovation. It's my world that I want to have a little pride in. My world, and it's not a place I have to hide in. Life's not worth a damn till you can say, I am what I am what I am. I don't want praise, I don't want pity. I bang my own drum, some think it's noise, I think it's pretty. And so what if I love each sparkle and each bangle? Why not try to see things from a different angle? Your life is a sham till you can shout out, I am what I am. I am what I am, and what I am needs no excuses. I deal my own deck, sometimes the ace, sometimes the deuces. It's one life and there's no return and no deposit. One life, so it's time to open up your closet. Life's not worth a damn till you can shout out, I am what I am. I am what I am.